I'm looking forward to a trip with my friends, and I'm planning to use your credit card for it. Suddenly, Gary called me out of nowhere. I had noticed that he'd been coming home late for the past few weeks. He was secretly talking to Deborah on the phone and seemed nervous at home. I wondered if he had been planning something all this time. I had a feeling that Gary and Deborah might be up to something together. Luckily, I was ready for anything. Maybe I should act surprised when he mentions it. What do you mean by mine? I asked for clarification. I already knew Gary was planning to leave for a trip today. Honestly, it's hard to believe. If he thinks he can deceive me, I wish he had made a better plan. I had been patient up until today, but now I felt a strong desire to retaliate. There's no way I didn't have a plan for revenge. It's time to stand up to those annoying siblings after being patient for so long. I'm sure everything will become clear after today. I hope they enjoy their trip, not knowing that one of their travel companions is working with me. My name is Marie Ferleo, and I'm 31 years old. I live in a house with my husband, Gary. Right after finishing high school, I started working at the company I'm still with today. After gaining some experience and being recommended by my boss, I earned several certifications. In this company, certifications and a solid track record mean you're valued highly. I got a leadership position at the age of 19, which was quite young for such a role. Even though it was just a lead position, I secretly hoped to become at least a department head one day. After a while, a few new employees joined the company, including Gary. Even though I'm younger than him, I hold a higher position at work. I was tasked with training 3 new employees, including Gary. Marie, you're about the same age as us, aren't you? He asked. And you're already a supervisor. That's impressive. Yes, I'm probably a year younger or so, I replied. I've been working here since I left high school, so I've gathered quite a bit of experience. Gary often praised my early career planning, which was flattering. Eventually, he began showing interest in me, and although I was hesitant at first, I found myself falling for him. Our relationship developed in a typical fashion, enjoying dinners out and drives until we decided to move in together. Living with Gary, I noticed his untidy habits, but thought it was his way of being comfortable around me, so I didn't fuss over it. After some time, Gary proposed, and I accepted. We then started to plan our future together. Gary suggested, "I'd like you to quit your job and stay at home. I'll work, and you can take care of the house. We should also start thinking about having kids soon, and I'm eager to buy a house and plan our wedding. How about we go for wedding house, then kid? What do you think?" "Gary, your plan sounds nice, and I'm not too concerned about the order, but we need to think about our finances," I responded. "I don't intend to leave my job, even with kids in the picture. We should be flexible. Buying a house might put a strain on our budget." "I understand," he said, "but it bothers me that you earn more. I was hoping we could get a house right after the wedding." "That might be difficult, given our financial situation. Let's focus on managing the wedding and house for now and consider children later. We'll decide on my job then." "All right, let's do that," Gary agreed. Inwardly, I didn't want to quit my job, but I felt I had to propose this compromise to keep the peace. At our engagement party, I met Gary's family, but his sister Deborah was away and only attended the wedding. She barged into the bride and groom's room, looked me over, smirked, and remarked, "So, Gary chose you. A bit plain compared to his exes, huh? I'm Deborah, your sister-in-law. I'm someone who's straightforward with family, so just a heads up." I'm Marie. Nice to meet you," I said, introducing myself. Deborah gave a casual wave and exited the room, leaving me quite surprised by her blunt demeanor. It was clear from the start that my sister-in-law was a character all her own. Later, I met Deborah's husband, who seemed like a genuinely nice person. The wedding ceremony went smoothly, and Gary and I eventually purchased a house we both loved. With life getting busier, I dedicated more effort to my job. One day when I was busy, the doorbell rang. Gary went to answer it and returned, laughing and chatting with Deborah, who had decided to visit unexpectedly. "Hey there, Marie. Gary's doing pretty well, huh? Owning such a big house. That's good for him, being my little brother and all." "I've been working hard," Deborah remarked, making herself comfortable. "Marie, do we have any snacks or something? My sister's here, so let's be quick," Gary urged, his tone off-putting. I sensed a change in Gary's attitude. He seemed to puff himself up in front of his sister, likely implying he was solely responsible for buying our house. Although I contributed to the down payment and mortgage, Gary insisted on having the house titled in his name. At the time, it seemed inconsequential whose name was on the deed, but his portrayal of the situation to Deborah bothered me. Nevertheless, I chose to keep the peace and not stir up trouble. "Here are some snacks. Gary really puts in a lot of effort, you know," I mentioned. "Why does Marie sound so authoritative?" "She's not the boss or anything," Deborah commented. "Well, actually, I am Gary's supervisor at work," I corrected her. "Oh, is that so?" I might not have mentioned that. Marie was already a manager when I started. "She's been working since she dropped out of high school, so it makes sense," Gary chimed in, somewhat dismissively. "Wait, you dropped out of high school? You seem so dedicated, yet you're less accomplished than me," Deborah provocatively said. "Is there an issue with me dropping out of high school?" I asked. "Not really, but Marie, since you didn't graduate from high school and I'm your sister-in-law, I guess I can ask you for anything, right?" Deborah suggested, misinterpreting the dynamics. "That's true," Gary agreed, emboldening Deborah's stance. "Marie, whatever my sister says goes. If you don't agree, I'll have to ask you to leave the house," Gary threatened, escalating the situation unnecessarily. The conversation with my sister-in-law and her brother left me baffled. Why would Deborah think she could demand anything from me just because I didn't finish high school and she's related by marriage? And the threat of being kicked out over it sounded absurd. Was this some kind of joke? I managed a polite smile and made my escape to the kitchen, but I could still catch Gary's voice, indicating they were serious about their strange assertion. Soon after, Deborah followed me into the kitchen with a request. "Hey, Marie? I need a favor. Can I borrow about $5,000? That's quite a bit of money. What do you need it for?" I asked, surprised by the boldness of her request. "It's just $5,000. You have a good job, right?" "I need it to finish paying off some renovation costs," she replied, as if it wasn't a significant amount. "But didn't you just show off your new condo?" I questioned. Deborah brushed off my query and insisted, saying Gary had agreed to lend her the money and directed her to me. Why would Gary promise something like that without discussing it with me first? I wondered aloud. Deborah then threatened to mess with my job unless I complied. "Fine, I'll lend you the money, but we're making a promissory note for it. And bring an ID with a photo when you come to get the cash," I stipulated, wanting to ensure I had a written agreement. Deborah begrudgingly agreed, showing up the next day with the required identification. Despite her complaints, I knew having a promissory note was crucial. This whole ordeal was eye-opening regarding how much Gary was influenced by Deborah. It seemed like standing up to her wouldn't have made any difference. Later, I discovered Deborah spent the borrowed money on luxury items. After the initial loan, she became more brazen, borrowing up to $12,000 in total. Each time, I insisted on a promissory note. Just when the situation seemed to spiral, I was called into the boss's office. Not for a reprimand, but for a surprise promotion from supervisor to manager. I was absolutely thrilled. Rushing home to share my big news with Gary, who had taken the day off, I burst through the door. "I'm home!" "Gary, guess what?" "Welcome back, Marie." "You look really happy. What's up?" He greeted me. "I just had a meeting with my boss, and you won't believe it. He offered me the position of department manager. I've always dreamed of climbing up to head manager, so this step is huge for me." "Wait, what? You're getting promoted?" Gary's confusion was palpable. "Did you accept?" "Of course I did. Haven't I mentioned my ambitions to you before?" His reaction took me by surprise. "You think I should have asked for your permission? But you know, I've always wanted to keep my career. And as for not being promoted yourself, that's something for you to address." Shortly after, Gary made a call, presumably to his sister, because she showed up not long after. "So, you think you can just snatch Gary's chance at a promotion?" she accused. "I haven't snatched anything. Promotions at our workplace are merit-based. I explained. But she retorted, suggesting I was belittling Gary. Before I knew it, they had taken my bank card from my purse. Despite my attempts to stop them, I was outnumbered and could only watch as they left, laughing. Left alone, tears started to form. Regret filled me. I should have seen the warning signs. It was clear what I needed to do next. Find a reputable divorce attorney. Gary didn't come home that night. At work the next day, he approached me with a grin, bragging about their extravagant meal funded by me. Handing over the receipt, I was shocked to see a $1,500 charge from a high-end barbecue place, along with $4,000 from luxury bars. I wanted to confront him right there, but with more colleagues arriving, I bit my tongue. Heading home, I checked my bank account and was stunned to find $10,000 missing. The reality of my situation was clearer than ever. I needed to take decisive action. When I returned home, I couldn't hold back my frustration. Gary, how could you justify spending $8,000 of my savings on luxury outings? That was money I saved before we were even together. His response was dismissive. Just got home and you're already on my case. That money? Not sure what you're talking about, and it's too late now. It's already spent. With that, he escaped to the bathroom, leaving me fuming and more resolved than ever to end our marriage. I sought legal advice over the weekend, and in the weeks that followed, I started the divorce proceedings. Gary's behavior didn't change. He kept coming home late and rushed out whenever he had a day off. Just as I considered hiring a detective, I received a call from Scott, Deborah's husband. "Hi, is this Marie?" he asked. "Yes, this is she. It's unusual to hear from you, Scott. I was wondering, is Deborah there?" "No, she's not." "Why do you ask?" "She's been returning late and leaving early on weekends, claiming she's at Gary's." "I was just checking." "That's odd. Gary's been acting similarly." "Honestly, I stopped caring about what they do," I confessed, feeling detached from the situation. Scott seemed concerned. "I've had enough too. I've thought about divorce, but haven't been able to go through with it." I shared my story with Scott about the money I lent Deborah and everything else. He expressed sympathy and mentioned he was close to his breaking point with Deborah. "Scott, maybe we should use what's happened as evidence. It sounds like we're both in unfair situations. Let's take a stand against their selfish behavior," I suggested, hoping to empower both of us to act. Scott agreed, and we discussed collaborating on our respective divorces. He then mentioned something odd about Deborah urging him to take a long vacation, and I recalled seeing travel brochures and club cards in a shelf Gary was secretive about. After finding these items, it dawned on me they were likely planning a trip together. "Scott, it looks like they might be planning a getaway. I just found travel brochures and some club cards in a place Gary told me never to look," I informed him, piecing together their probable plans. Discovering some travel brochures sparked an idea in me. I shared my plan with Scott over the phone, and he laughed, agreeing to join in. We decided to coordinate our actions via text messages and concluded our conversation. I also sent him some potential evidence that might help with his divorce, and we carefully planned our next moves. 2 weeks later, on a day pre-informed by Scott, Gary left the house early in the morning. A few hours after his departure, he called me, boasting about having a blast with his sister and friends on my account. His recent pattern of late returns and secretive phone calls with Deborah had already raised my suspicions. I decided to feign ignorance to see how far he would go. "Your card? What are you talking about?" I played along, confused. "You seriously didn't notice? We've been planning this trip for a while. Scott was our backup. You've become too proud, and we thought it's time to teach you a lesson," Gary retorted, confident in his scheme. His words left me emotionless, my patience replaced by a resolve for retribution. "What was that about my debit card earlier?" I inquired. "I have my card here," I stated, pretending to be confused. "That's impossible. Here's the card." "Wait, what?" Gary stammered, realizing something was wrong. "That's a fitness club membership card, Gary. Did you mix them up?" I couldn't help but reveal the trick. "Scott, listening in on speakerphone, chimed in. So it was a plan concocted by Deborah and you? I'm utterly disappointed. Actually, I switched the cards last night, I confessed. Looks like you didn't double-check this morning and just assumed. Gary, caught in his own trap, sputtered in disbelief. What are you playing at? I should be asking you that, I shot back. Don't get too smug just because you think you can outsmart us. Gary's failed attempt at using my supposed debit card, only to find out it was a fitness club card, marked a turning point. His plan, fueled by arrogance and the belief in an easy victory over me, crumbled. This incident, a minor victory in the grand scheme of things, was a reminder of the importance of staying vigilant and prepared, especially against those who underestimate your resolve. I had a little surprise in store for Gary and Deborah upon their return. I've got gifts waiting for both of you when you get back, I teased, knowing full well the twist I had planned. You think gifts will make up for this? I only want cash, Gary retorted, thinking he could sway me with demands. We'll see, I said, adding a touch of mystery to my voice. Look forward to it. Ignoring their subsequent request for money, I ended the call and went to sleep, brushing off Gary's threatening message with a simple, "Is that so?" The next afternoon, my phone was bombarded with missed calls and messages. I first reassured Scott, then tackled Gary's relentless pleas for money. It's freezing here. We're in Ketchikan of all places, in March. Help! Their discomfort was a clear sign my plan had succeeded. You were counting on Scott, weren't you? Too bad he's on his way back here. Not stuck in Ketchikan with you. Confusion and desperation seeped through Gary's response. What do you mean? Scott's not here? Exactly, I confirmed. While you were busy plotting with Deborah, Scott and I joined forces. He's already boarded a plane back. The revelation left them stunned, and I ended the call with a clear message. Now, find your own way back. See you? I then prepared for the inevitable confrontation upon their return, organizing a final meeting with my lawyer to discuss the divorce. I anticipated Gary and his group's outrage, ready to face them with calm determination. As expected, upon their return, Gary and his friends stormed in, demanding explanations and threatening me with eviction. But when Scott, usually the peacemaker, raised his voice, commanding them to sit down, they were taken aback. This unexpected assertiveness from Scott marked a turning point, establishing a new dynamic that would shape our next steps. The lawyer wasted no time in distributing his business cards to Gary and Deborah, who appeared utterly bewildered by the gesture. Well, here's a special gift from us, Scott and I announced, presenting them with a stack of documents. Their confusion turned to shock as they skimmed the papers. Wait, this is about dividing property. You're not suggesting divorce, are you? Gary stammered, disbelief written all over his face. It's exactly that, a divorce, I clarified as their faces drained of color. This has to be a joke, right? Deborah attempted a laugh, looking for support from Scott, who was already heading towards the door. I've documented everything, including the call Gary made from their so-called vacation, Scott revealed, his tone serious. It's beyond clear what you've done, and I cannot go on like this. Both Gary and Deborah tried to protest, but their attempts were feeble and unconvincing. I'm entitled to half of the down payment we made on the house, the remainder of the mortgage, and the reimbursement of the savings you squandered from my single days, I stated firmly. Deborah tried to deny borrowing money or accessing my savings, but her denial crumbled when I mentioned the promissory note. Their desperate attempt to destroy evidence, Gary crushing the recorder and Deborah ripping up the document, was met with calm responses from Scott and me, explaining the futility of their actions. Even if you destroy that recorder, the data's still safe on my computer. And Deborah, that wasn't the original document you tore up, I said, revealing their short-sightedness. The claims we laid out were substantial. Gary was billed for $125,000, covering emotional damages, the down payment on the house, and miscellaneous expenses with an additional loan repayment due. Deborah faced a bill of $26,000, including the loan she acknowledged with a promissory note and miscellaneous expenses. Scott's claim against Deborah was even more significant, amounting to $110,000 for the distress she caused him and the reckless spending, all without touching assets like condos. As reality sank in, Gary and Deborah could do nothing but cry, realizing the severity of their situation and the consequences of their actions. This wasn't just a threat. It was a firm stance against their irresponsible and selfish behavior, marking a turning point for all of us. I suspected that Gary and Deborah might consider suing, given their history of rash decisions. But our sharp attorney had cleverly included a clause in the settlement documents essentially saying, if you try to sue, you'll definitely lose. No lawyer will take your case, and you'll only end up spending more money. Focus on repaying your debts instead. This tactic ensured we could resolve everything without stepping into a courtroom. After settling the matter, I collected my things and left our shared home behind. Surprisingly, news of the ordeal spread through my workplace, leading to Gary being transferred to a different branch, a move that likely saved both of us from further awkward encounters. Not long after, Gary reached out with a message that was both desperate and hopeful, suggesting we try to mend our relationship and insisting he had changed. Similarly, Deborah tried to persuade me to reconsider, hinting at the possibility of living together as if that could magically resolve the deep-seated issues between us. Their pleas fell on deaf ears. I had made up my mind. Firm in my decision, I blocked them, cutting off any chance for them to sway me. Scott, who'd become a friend and confidant through this ordeal, shared that he too had received and ignored similar pleas from Deborah. One day, a drive past my old house revealed it was on the market, a clear sign that Gary and Deborah had managed to make the repayment. Since I had blocked all communication with them, their current situation remained a mystery to me. In the meantime, I moved on with my life, purchasing a condo and diving into my work, which soon paid off with a promotion to regional director, a goal I had long aspired to achieve. Scott and I began to spend more time together, discovering a surprising ease and compatibility in our interactions. Something about our dynamic just felt right, hinting at a budding relationship that was different from anything I had experienced before. Life after the divorce unfolded beautifully, affirming my decision to leave a toxic situation behind. As for what developed between Scott and me, that's a story for another chapter 1 filled with promise and new beginnings.